2 years ago on Tisha B'Av, my daughter asked the following questions. How do I relate to a Beis HaMikdash, to a holy temple that I never stepped foot in? How do I miss something that I've never had? And I think it's a fair question. And I think it was a little hard for me to answer because if I'm being honest, I've had the same question. And if we're all being honest, I imagine that many of us have had this question and this wondering where here we are on Tisha B'Av and how much do we feel? And our goal is to yearn and long for the rebuilding. Our goal is to wish and do everything we can to try to bring forth the Geula, the redemption, so we can go back to Jerusalem, so we can rebuild the temple. I'm not a holy rabbi in Israel who spends all day studying Torah. I'm just a regular guy, just a businessman. How do I impact that in some shape or form? And how do I actually cue up the emotion? How do I conjure up the feelings to be able to somehow feel like I'm doing something meaningful today and like somehow this matters to me? Our job today is to long and to feel and to want, but you can't selectively turn on emotions. So we do things to try to get into the mood. We watch the sad movies. We read the Lamentations. We watch this live stream just to try to connect and figure out some way to feel and long and yearn and believe and connect. And how do we do it? How do we take it where it's not just this like abstract thing we're doing out there? Just like, I hope I can figure out some way to feel and care about this and bring it into ourselves. Somehow make it part of our lives, of our thought process, and of the things we really care about, maybe more than anything in the world. But here's a couple of questions to get started. I want you to imagine for a minute Moses, who we all know he gets to the top of the mountain and he gets the two tablets. Can you imagine for a minute like what he's gone through? He starts at the burning bush and he meets God and he speaks with a lisp and God's like, you're going to be the guy. And then he goes to Paro, let my people go. And then he ends up taking the people out, all the plagues, and they leave and the split sea, and they come to the other side and they sing and they bring him to the mountain, and he goes up to the mountain, and all this pain and the complaining of the people and the rock and hitting the rock and getting the water out. And you imagine the saga and drama that's brought him to this point where he's gone up the mountain, he's met God face to face, and he's coming down with the luchos, with the two tablets. And you can imagine he's making his way down the mountain, right? And he starts to hear the sounds of the festival. And you can imagine he like turns a corner and he sees what's going down there and he's like, what? And they're dancing around a golden calf. They're dancing around an idol. Can you imagine the wild disappointment he must have felt? And what does he do? He takes the two luchos, he smashes them into 1,000 pieces, and you got to imagine an incredible moment of failure, an incredible moment of disappointment, an incredible like shock of like, after everything we've been through, that's what's happening right now, dancing around and I smash into 1,000. And here's the question. What did we do with those shards, the broken pieces of the luchos? Because we know that Moshe ended up praying for them and God ended up forgiving them and he ended up going up and getting the second luchos, and the second luchos we keep in the ark, in the Beis HaMikdash, in the Holy of Holies, in the holiest place in the world, and there they are sitting there. What do we do with the shards? What do we do with the pieces? And the answer is we keep them in the ark, in the Holy of Holies, in the Holy Temple, in the Beis HaMikdash, in Yerushalayim. The broken pieces, the shards, the failures. What? Why would we save the failures and keep them in the holiest place in the world? And here's another question. It says in the Torah that the Jewish people are not allowed to oppress a ger, a convert, someone that comes to the community, someone that comes to the camp, and you see he's looking around, he doesn't want to know, and he wants to join, and he converts over. Don't oppress him. And the word specifically the Torah uses is it says, don't oppress him because you were once a slave in the land of Egypt. Now, what's the relation here? You've got a person who's selectively choosing to come into the camp to be a part of the Jewish people. And we're pretty nice folks. And we're like, you would imagine it's like, welcome, come sit at my Shabbos table. Like, amazing. But the Torah has to warn us like not to oppress them. And the reason why is because you were once a slave in the land of Egypt. They threw our babies in the river. They put backbreaking work. They tortured. Because you were a slave, you should not oppress somebody who's joining the camp. Like what? And not only that, but the Torah feels so strong about it. It says in the Talmud that the Torah says it like 21 times. Some people say it's 36 times. Some people say it's 46 times. Reminders of like, don't oppress the convert, the ger, the stranger who comes into your community. Like what? Why is this such a big deal? I like to think that I'm what they call a girl dad. Now, I have a son. Thank God, my fourth child, but I had 3 girls first. And you can imagine that as we were growing up, it was heavy girl house. And especially at one point when I had 3 teenage girls at the same time, you could only imagine the fireworks. It was totally wild. Now, I grew up with 1 brother. That's it. That would be like the definition of like boy house, small boy house. Like we don't know anything from girls. So when you start talking about like makeup and hair and skirts and girl drama and friend drama, and you can only imagine the whirlwind that a guy like I am in of trying to like understand what is happening in this space. How on earth am I going to relate to this set of teenage girls? It doesn't actually make sense. And let's go even deeper. Imagine for a minute if you're like relating to your spouse and you're told that you should provide empathy for your spouse when she's complaining or sharing about a situation that she's in that I will never, ever, ever, ever experience in my life. And somehow I'm supposed to like provide empathy and like connect on this. How do I do that? How do I relate to a teenager growing up in the world right now of social media and social pressure and anti-Semitism? You can only imagine how these kids are being pulled in 1,000 different directions. I just didn't grow up that way. How am I supposed to relate to what they're living in and what they're going through in order to properly parent them and be able to connect with them? And the answer is shocking. Is that when it comes to empathy, when it comes to connecting with somebody, it's not that we have to have lived through what they have lived through. It's not like I have to put on the makeup in order to get how it's not that I have to have been through what my wife is going. It's not that I have to suddenly go to high school, pretend I'm a teenager all over again. The answer is that our job is to understand what's below the surface. Is that if someone is expressing this situation that they're struggling with, my job is to look deeper into that situation and pull out the underlying emotion that they're feeling, and then reach into my life and see if I've had some kind of experience with the same underlying emotion, trying to find the emotional common ground. To be able to say, I too know what it is like to have felt that someone was there for me and they backed out. And that pain of feeling like I was connected, feeling like I was in, but feeling left out. I know what it's like to feel left out. I know what loss feels like. I know what hurt feels like. I know what anger feels like. I haven't been in your shoes. I didn't live that scenario, but I had a similar situation. And that similar situation was totally different than yours, but the underlying emotion where I felt the loss, the pain, the hurt, the struggle, the anger, I know what it feels like, and you're not alone. Just think about any situation that you've fallen in your life. You want to connect with somebody. You reach out to those people and you say, hey, let me share with you. And you tell them the situation that you're going through. What do they come back with? If they come back with, that stinks. Well, you're not getting what you want. If they're coming back with, yeah, I hear you, it doesn't really do it. It's only once that they can share with you, hey, I understand that deeper emotion, that piece that you're actually feeling. And I felt it too. And it's okay. You're not alone. That's the moment that you feel washed over and you feel understood and you feel cared for. And you're like, thank you. I feel less alone. That's exactly what I needed. The reason that the Torah comes in 19, 21, 36, 46 times to remind us, don't oppressed the Ger because you were a slave in Egypt, is because we also know what it's like to walk into a neighborhood, to walk into a community and feel foreign and be like, I don't know the customs here in Egypt. I don't understand the rules that are going on here. I don't know what's going on. And that feels unfamiliar. That feels dangerous. That feels challenging. That feels alone. That feels struggle. That feels painful. And when the convert comes in and he's looking around, he doesn't know the rules. He doesn't know the neighborhood. He doesn't know the people. I too know what that's like. I was in Egypt. I felt that similar common ground, that emotional common ground to say, like, I know what it's like to feel so strange and outward and not part of what's going on here because I just haven't learned yet where to be and how to be. And it's so easy for us. It needs reminder after reminder for us to just kind of barrel through that emotion and not reach into our own stuff and create vulnerability within ourselves to admit that I too felt what that feels like. And the Torah is going again and again and again. Yes, you know what it's like. Make sure you make him comfortable. Make sure you don't oppress him. Make sure you don't feel he doesn't feel alone because you know what that's like. Be with him there. The idea that we have the ability to find emotional common ground is where the beginnings of relating to the Beis HaMikdash and the Holy Temple are. Is because if you just imagine for a minute, just allow yourself to go there. Just make it up in your head that you have a home and that home burns down. And all that's left is some wall on the western side. And you can go to that wall and you can feel the loss and the pain and the hurt of what used to be this home that you lived in, that you loved, that was amazing. And you see it, you can feel it, you can touch that wall and you know it's not there. And then the insurance is delayed forever. You know the house is going to get rebuilt, but you don't have a time frame. It's not in your control. You don't know what's happening. Can you imagine how lost and alone and insecure because you don't have a home, you don't have a place? If you conjure up those feelings and just imagine it, here's the point. There are other scenarios in your life where you have felt loss. You have felt pain. You've been missing something that you once had that you lost. You have something in your life that you wish could come back, but it's out of your control and you're not able to just make it come back. We have an ability to reach into the emotional common ground and pull from our experiences the feelings of, man, I may not have actually stepped foot in the Beis HaMikdash. I may not have actually, it may not have been a part of my life per se, but I know what loss feels like. I know what pain feels like. I know what struggle feels like. I know what wishing if I could just have it back feels like. And if you tap into those personal emotions, suddenly it becomes personal for you. But it goes even further. So I like to joke that I'm a recovering fat guy. I got married young, and as I had my 4 children, my wife would get pregnant. We would eat everything in sight. She would have a baby and go back to being tiny, and I would keep it and multiply that times 4 children. I reached a point that I was totally out of control. And the doctor said to me at that point, he said, you know what, you're going to have to lose 5% of your weight, or I'm going to put you on a medicine, which you'll be on the rest of your life for your triglycerides or whatever. And I realized at that point, like, I got to get control of this. So not knowing anything, I decided I was going to go to Weight Watchers. And I would go to these classes, and it was like me and 27 women, me hiding in a corner, pretending I'm not there, hiding. And slowly, one class at a time, I would learn. And I would listen, and I would pay attention. And I would take another piece, and I would take another lesson, and I would learn one tiny little bit, and I'd walk away and start to make tiny incremental changes. And now I fast forward like 15 years, and I don't look at myself anymore as like a guy who struggled with weight. I look at myself as an athlete. I do obstacle course racing. I'm somebody that eats healthy. It is my entire personality to be someone who cares about health and fitness and obstacles. It's just who I am. And I think that if you consider anything in your life that you're proud of in terms of who you are, who you've worked to build yourself into, It started somewhere with some internal motivation where you're like, I think I'd like to try this. I have interest in this. I'm motivated to give it a shot. And then you went and you incrementally learned, little bit at a time. And one day it just became you. It's just who you are. I am a something. Answer it for yourself. But rewind back and be honest with yourself and realize that that came through an effort and an exercise in very small little bits of learning, because what we invest in, we become. What we put our effort toward is what we end up building. And if we choose to focus on something and we give it that drip, drip little bit of effort, one touch at a time, it will eventually lead to a point that I will start to care about it. Because I've given it, it's giving back to the point that it becomes part of me. So if I've never, ever, ever considered or thought of or even whatever, the Beis Hamikdash, the Holy Temple, it's just not been part of my schema. It's not something that I consider on a daily basis. It's not something I've ever learned anything about. It's not part of me. It doesn't matter in my world. And so the point is that it doesn't need to be a lot. I'm not saying that we should shut our lives down and go start studying all the books to learn all the details of the Beis Hamikdash, but we're here. It's Tisha B'Av. This is the day that we're focused on the Beis Hamikdash. So perhaps the tiniest little bit, as you're doing now here on the live stream, just to learn about it. And with a little bit of care and consistency, a little bit of that motivation and interest that gets things started, you fast forward 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, those little pieces there, suddenly the Beis Hamikdash will become alive to you. Suddenly Jerusalem, the Jewish people, these things will start to matter to you in a way that it's impossible to fathom right now when it's not much there. But just like putting effort into fitness, diet, nutrition was like a drip nothing in the beginning, and suddenly it just becomes your personality. Suddenly the Jewish people, the Beis Hamikdash, Yerushalayim, these things that right now are small will become something that we deeply, deeply care about. And it doesn't have to be a lot. As a matter of fact, there was a story I had about 25 years ago where I met a girl who literally came to a Shabbaton or a convention, and she walks in like, eating something not kosher, having no clue that she's walking into this program to like learn a little bit about Judaism, and we end up having a discussion, and she finds it interesting. So we have another, and then she participates in the convention and then decides to come to another one. And then fast forward, she comes to another one. And she's now been to 3, 4, 5. And she says to me, this is amazing. I'm loving I like how this makes me feel. I like being part of the Jewish people. This is really fantastic. I think I'm ready to take something on. I said, wow, good. Like, that's incredible. I'm really, really proud of you. That's amazing. And she says, I have decided I'm going to start keeping Shabbat. And I'm like, whoa. Like, you heard about Shabbat like 3 months ago. Like, no. That's way too big. She goes, okay, fair. I'm going to talk to my parents about making our house kosher. I'm like, whoa, like way too big. That's not the place to start. Let's pull back. And we had a negotiation, a discussion, trying to figure out where and how it all made sense. What we concluded with was that she used to listen to music as she would go to sleep every night. And she was just not going to listen on Friday nights. That's it. That small. And you fast forward these 25 years, and this is a person that has impacted the community in incredible ways, has been very involved with the Jewish people and built a beautiful, beautiful community and just a wonderful, wonderful person. All started from one tiny, little, consistent move. And that's kind of how it is in life, is that trust is built in the smallest moments. It's not something that like, oh, let's buy Ari a Ferrari, and now Ari's got a Ferrari and he loves you. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. I now trust you with everything I've got. I'm all in. That's not it at all. You think about the best friends and the people in your life that you really care about the most. They're the ones that have shown up for you in the small moments again and again and again consistently. And the Svas Emes comes in, the holy Svas Emes on the Torah, who does this incredible review and ability to break things down, said that when it comes specifically to the Beis HaMikdash, when it comes specifically to the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash, our bits of pain are the building blocks for the rebuilding. Our little bits of pain and the destruction are the building blocks for the rebuilding. And wow, like heavy. But his point is so subtle and so beautiful and so simple. I might think, who am I? I'm just a guy. What do I know from anything? And he's saying that if I can tap in that one tiny bit, if I can find one semblance of emotional common ground to go, man, that is a big deal. I do feel an ounce of loss. I actually learned about this a little bit, and it resonated with me. I actually feel like I could understand how losing that would be really painful. I understand that that's created an exile for all these years, and that it's hard for the Jewish people. And like, look what we're going through right now with the anti-Semitism across the world. And look what's happening with on campus. And look what's happening in the world and in France, and what is happening? Like, and suddenly we have felt an ounce of pain started in the destruction, and that spark that we've created has now dropped into the bucket of the stones that'll be rebuilding the Beis HaMikdash in the future. That's incredible, and it doesn't take all that much. It's not something that feels like I have to go like so deep into this to really understand and become a rabbi myself, to feel like I'm related and connected and I can somehow make an impact. I have an ability to make an impact just by giving it a little bit of care, giving it a little bit of motivation, learning a little bit, one tiny little bit, and I'm part of the team. I'm in. I'm all in. Moshe is actually a man who started with a lisp. He was not secure in being the leader that he ended up becoming. So much so, if you recall, Moshe, who at the very end, after the whole thing, doesn't even get to go into Israel. He does all this work, he doesn't even get to go into Israel. As a matter of fact, the whole generation that was at Sinai, they didn't get to go in. It was the next generation. You see, the fifth book of the Torah that we read right here just yesterday, which begins the lead toward Israel, is Moshe actually reviewing the first four books of the Torah. It's called Devarim, which is words. And if you think about it, Moshe, who started with a lisp, and like, not me, God, pick somebody else, ends up talking the whole fifth book of the Torah, giving over the history. And who's he giving it over to? He's giving it over to the next generation, not the generation that heard directly from God at Mount Sinai. Those, you would think, they're the highest level. They got to be the ones to go into Israel. No, they didn't. Instead, it was the next generation who was one step removed from hearing directly from God. So they got to go into Israel. And the message is that the lower the level, the higher the potential. The lower the level, the higher the potential. What these guys were capable of was to be able to go to the land of Israel, where the ones that were already up here speaking directly to God, they kind of maxed out. And so if you follow the generations, and obviously we're further and further and further and further and further away, look at the challenges that we face in the world today, the stuff that I can't even perceive when I was a kid to have to struggle with, what my kids and God willing grandkids are going to be living with in the world. Like, you can't even perceive what the changes and the technology and the struggles, and it's off the charts. But all that means is that their potential for greatness is so much higher than ours. The yin and the yang is incredibly high and incredibly massive. And that means that we today have an opportunity. It means that if we can let go of the who am I, let go of the I'm a nothing, let go of the anxiety and the worry and the fear of I'm just a bad Jew. I don't do enough. I'm not a big rabbi in Israel. I'm just me. And we can just say, I'm not trying to be a big rabbi in Israel. I'm not trying to be some giant in the Jewish people. I'm just trying to be me. I'm just trying to do my part. And if we can find the motivation and the interest to just lean in and start and make one tiny step, that tiny step might be small, but when you compare that tiny step to where we are in this low generation, that tiny step is humongous. It's massive. It has incredible impact. It has the ability to drop in as a stone that can rebuild the Beis HaMikdash. That can rebuild the Holy Temple. That God can look and say that one tiny move that you made is like greater than 100 years ago, somebody studying all day long. You make one small move. It is appreciated in the not just in the spiritual world, but the Jewish people. Like you are acting as you're on the team. You're in. We're working together to rebuild. And the only way to do it is with all of us. And the mistakes that we made, the failures that we struggle with, okay, that's our reality. That's our insecurity. Because you know what? When Moshe is going down the mountain and he turns and he looks at you, what's going on? And he breaks it into 1,000 pieces. You know where we took those shards? We put them into the Holy Ark, in the Holy of Holies, in the holiest place in the world, in the Beis HaMikdash, right next to the whole ones. Why? Why would we do that? And the answer is because God appreciates our successes equal with our failures. God appreciates our failures equal with our successes. We just got to try. We just got to go out and give it everything that we have. We just have to just try a little bit. We just have to get uncomfortable. We just have to be a little bit vulnerable. We just have to be able to tap in to the stuff that we have personal in our life and try to pull that underlying emotion to try to feel something. And that little bit of yearning is a step that we didn't have before, which builds a spark and drops directly into the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash. It creates spiritual sparks that resonate through the world because we made a move. We just tried, and if it doesn't work, it's a failure. God goes, thank you. Keep it up. Try again. Get back in the ring. You got this. I chose you. You're on the team. And what I want from you is just to try. Whether it works or not, that's up to me. That's up to God. But our job is to try. And our job is to learn. And our job is to make those steps and make ourselves vulnerable to work and try to feel and try to connect. Our job today is to yearn, to long, to hope for. We actually do have the ability to relate. We all know what it feels like to yearn and long and want for. We just need to take this time, take this moment, and find a small part of us that's willing to go there and go there. Because if you make that small move, you learn that little bit, and especially if you can keep it consistent over a number of years to be able to grow yourself to the point that you actually really deeply care and it matters, you are building the Jewish people from the inside out. You are building the Holy Temple right now with foundational stones. You, us, we, together.